What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 5 O'Clock Hustle podcast. This is episode 12, and I'm your friend, Christopher List, coming to you from 5 O'Clock Hustle Studios, which today happens to be in my car in front of Starbucks during my lunch break. If you don't know by now, our podcast is for all the weekend warriors, the after-hours entrepreneurs, and the hustlers who want to explore their passions and reach their goals outside of their regular 9-to-5 jobs. Today, we have a really great episode for you with one of the most influential people in Hollywood. His name is Richard Botto, or RB for short. He's a writer, actor, director, producer. He also happens to be the CEO and founder of the social network and education hub, Stage32.com. Stage32 is a film industry-focused social network with over 600,000 worldwide users. And Forbes has called it Lynda.com meets LinkedIn for film, television, and theater creatives. There's definitely some validity to the old adage, it's who you know. Well, Stage 32 is where they are. In addition to the social network, they have an expansive library of e-classes and webinars, and they even have screenwriting and filmmaking contests. These features are just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into the site myself because I too am a wannabe film producer. In addition, RB also has a new book out called Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers, Indie Film, and the Power of the Crowd. He details how to put crowdsourcing to use for creative projects and how to build successful crowdsourcing campaigns. You can find the link for Stage 32 in his book on the episode page, 5o'clockhustle.com/stage32. RB's experience and list of credentials is seemingly endless, and we're absolutely honored to have him on as a guest. Whether or not you're in the film industry, I know you're going to learn a ton from this episode. I know we did. If you enjoyed it, remember to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and sign up for our newsletter. You'll get up to date on all of our new episodes and a lot of other really cool content too. Now, enough of me. Let's get this thing started. Keep hustling, everybody. And Dre, start the show. 5 o'clock hustle.
5 o'clock hustle, bro.
5 o'clock.
5 to 8, 5 to 12, 5 to 3 until you get back up the next morning.
Every week I got a new idea.
And that's what it always is, right? It's crazy.
5 o'clock.
I was doing that in 2005, but everybody thought it was weird.
5 o'clock.
Thus, the side hustle was created.
5 o'clock hustle podcast.
Man, they're having so much fun.
So why don't we just start with
Give us a little background on Stage 32.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Well, I mean, my background is in writing and in business, really. It's kind of all over the place in a lot of ways, but it was always, I guess, the connective tissue was the creativity part of it. You know, I think when you're an entrepreneur, obviously there is a creative aspect to that never ends. And when you're a creative in the film industry, no matter whether you're an actor or a writer or a producer, there's an entrepreneurial aspect to that. So it's kind of a melding and a meshing of the two that I've always been attracted to. And I think that's why it's, you know, some people in this business, you know, they kind of shy away from the business side of it. They just like the creative side. I've always liked both sides of it. And that's really one of the reasons why, I should say, I think it's very important that you know both, even if you're not interested in, you know, being a producer or being involved in the business side, that you understand how it functions. Because I think if you understand how it functions, it informs your pursuits as a creative. And I think it's good to know what's going on in the business anyway and how the business operates. So
It's a pretty rough business,
that
though,
was-
right? Is that just, sorry to jump in on you, but
No.
you know?
No. You know, it's funny. When people say it's a rough business, yes and no. I think that it's an endurance business. It's a marathon and not a sprint. I tell people that all the time. People always say, like, what's the shortcuts? And I always say the shortcuts are patience and perseverance, but it's also being aggressive. And it's also, you know, something that a lot of people don't take a lot of time thinking about, especially people that are just starting out. And that's the relationship side of it and the building of relationships and how important that is. Because what a lot of people don't understand, and this happens all the time, especially on social media, you know, I'll get hit up maybe 40, 50 times, no exaggeration, 40, 50 times a week from people who will say, you know, can you read my script, or I have this great idea, or you know, can you find me financing, or will you produce my film, my short, my web series, whatever. And the reality is that, and you know, it's not just me, obviously, it's everybody that has, and you know, established any sort of foothold in this business. And the reality is, whether it's me or anybody else that's been in this business for a while, if we don't have a relationship with you, there are too many people that we do have relationships with that we're going to go to for material that we're going to work with. And first, it's that old adage with this business that, when we talk about managers, let's say on the screenwriting side, that they have three piles. They have the pile of their clients' work, the pile of people who have been referred to them by people they know, and the third pile is everything else. And that third pile probably never gets touched because there just isn't enough time. So people underestimate the relationship side of this business. So when we say it's a tough business, it's tough from the standpoint that it's a business of no. You hear more no's than you're going to hear yes, of course. And but that's okay. Every no, you have to learn something from every no. If you have a takeaway from every no, this is the same thing in business, by the way. If you have a takeaway from every no, if you learn something from every no, when it's going to bring you closer to that yes. So the competitive advantage that people can give themselves in this business, and where it becomes less, quote unquote tough, is building relationships, learning how to accept criticism, learning from every no, moving forward at all times. That's really the competitive advantage, because a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people don't want to invest the time in building those relationships and everything like that. So that's one of the very reasons why, and one of many reasons why, probably the cornerstone reason that I started Stage 32 was to give people an environment where they are networking and learning from and talking to like-minded people who are looking to do the same thing. And by virtue of being on the platform and working the platform, you get to kind of see who's serious and who's not serious, who's putting in the time and who's not.
Yeah.
And that gives you the ability to kind of sit there and network with those people. And that's
great,
really, that's really what that's, a jumping off point.
Yeah, that's great.
Sure. Yeah, I actually, I signed up for an account. I dabbled a little bit in the film industry, making a pilot episode for something that it's technically still in development, but it's not a big deal.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just wish I had an awesome network like you. I wish I knew about you guys before we started the project, because I would have probably made things a lot easier.
It's never too late.
We kind of bit off more than we could chew,
late.
but it was a fun learning experience. I was kind of acting as the producer of the film, because I was the guy that went to business school, whereas the other guys went to film school.
Right. Yeah. Well.
But we're gonna probably have to. I'm probably gonna have to dive more into Stage 32 to find maybe some people that can help us out.
Yeah, and there's so much. It seems like
no
there's
better time than now, too.
Right.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, RB, can we call you RB? Should we do that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Sweet. Appreciate it. Okay, cool. So RB, we've been going through it. There's so many different tools on, in Stage 32. I mean, how did you get to that? Like, how did you come? I know that Happy Writers, for instance, was an acquisition, and then the other stuff kind of probably just evolved. But I mean, is it you're just basically solving all the problems that you saw in the industry? Is that how it was working, or I mean, you got a lot going on?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much exactly right. I approached it from the beginning from a standpoint of what am I not getting from broad-based social media sites?
Mm-hmm.
And, it's so funny. There was an article just today. Oh my God, I think it was the CEO of one of these social networks. Maybe it was one of the video networks or video platforms that said, because Facebook's been getting smashed lately, and that, he came out and he said, well, Facebook, you go back to baby pictures and just do what they do well. And it's funny because that's exactly kind of the reason I started Stage 32,
Nice.
because I was on all these platforms, and instead of when I was connecting with people in the industry, there was, posting pictures of their kids and their food. And I was like, well, great, but, I'm here to kind of make contacts that matter. So yeah, that's exactly right. I started it with the idea of, okay, let's start building the community first, and then we'll add all the features that I would like to see if I was a member, which I am. And that's, I think, something that's lost on the public as well sometimes, is the fact that I am a user of the platform. I am exactly the audience this platform has been was created for. We are all, I don't care who you are in this business or what level of success you've had, you're going to keep grinding. It's a grinding business. You're only as good as your last project, and then the next one is a whole new thing. And so for me, it was all about, okay, who do I want to connect with? What do I want to learn about? What are the topics I want to talk about? And that's how kind of the sections grew. The sections grew out of those questions. Our lounge, which is our version of the forums, which now I think has 110,000 or so conversations, which is insane to me.
Yeah,
And, that was really bred out of the idea of how do we get talking about these individual topics, and how do people that are working in these different crafts, and how, as we enter into an era, which we were even 5 or 6 years ago, where people are becoming, it used to be people who were just screenwriters, people who were just actors, but now that's not good enough anymore. Now it's, screenwriter, directors, actor, producers, people are controlling their content more than ever.
Yeah.
But it's a learning experience when you when you branch out into different crafts. So how do we service everyone, every craft, every aspect of the business? And, it was a long process, and it's something that's still evolving over time, but that's how we really kind of got to all these features, and how we eventually introduced education, which is something I'm extremely proud of as well.
Yeah, the education piece is huge.
Yeah, I was looking at I signed up for one of the free webinars, so just to kind of do a little feeler out there, just to kind of see what it was all about. But I'm still waiting to do that. I want to kind of bounce back and forth to Stage 32 as a business, and also the filmmaking side, because one thing I've learned from a lot of our guests, that there's so many parallels between the different disciplines in business, no matter what industry it really is. But I kind of want to go back to the I guess the beginning of Stage 32, and kind of the process of like how it got just the kind of the virality and how big it's gotten. Like, what was that process like?
Well, it's kind of fascinating, because we didn't call it crowdsourcing at the time. Even though that term or that word had been coined by a couple of writers at Wired back in 2006, that term was really associated with development and website development and things of that nature. But that's really kind of what we did from the beginning. I went to 100 of my industry friends and colleagues and said, this is what I'm doing. Or actually, I had built it already. I kind of did it backwards. I built it first. And I just basically said, if you like what you see, please invite at least 5 fellow creators or 5 colleagues, that you work with, or that you have on your team or on your set or whatever. And that really was a crowdsourcing move. And it was, the idea being that it's okay if I go out in there and tell you it's great, but if you go to your people and you tell them, and you have, you're champions of these people, and these people respect your opinion, obviously they're going to listen to you more than they're going to listen to me. And that message is still there today. If you sign up for an account today, you'll see a message from me immediately on your wall, and it's the same thing. It's me talking about the fact that I'm no different than anybody else on the site, and I'm on the grind just like everybody else is on the grind. And this is a platform that
for you by
get out
you,
what you put in. And for you by you.
Yeah,
exactly right. And what I mean by that is saying for you by you, there's 2 messages kind of embedded in that. One is that, you're going to get out what you put in. The second thing is that, the more you help it grow, and the more that we act as a community to help it grow, the more people, the more opportunity, and the more opportunity, the more success. So to me, the crowdsourcing aspect of that has been something that we embraced in the beginning, even though, like I said, we didn't call it that. And to be here all these years later, and 3-4 years later, to be asked to write a book on film crowdsourcing, that was really, well, it was a shock to be asked, but it was also very rewarding for me, because even though we didn't quite call it that at the time, that's exactly what we were doing. And I don't think that there is any aspect in being a content creator, being an actor, a writer, a producer, a filmmaker, or even film financier, anything in this business. There's no more important subject that we should be talking about than crowdsourcing, because when you're controlling your own content, and with the opportunities that are out there to self-distribute and to get your content out there, the most important thing that you can bring as proof of concept outside of the material itself is an audience. And if you can bring that audience with you, that is currency that people are not only embracing, but it's becoming really almost the most valuable currency out there. So crowdsourcing is so important these days. People confuse it with crowdfunding. They're 2 different things. But that's, a long-winded way of saying that's what we did from the beginning, but to build it, to make it viral, and to grow it to over 500,000 people from 100, 6-7 years ago. But it's also important to put the exclamation point on the fact that idea of crowdsourcing is just hugely important right now.
Now, you may have answered this, but was there like a certain thing that kind of led you to go that route as opposed to just like, I guess, the traditional route of advertising, or, did you see a void in your expertise or in your department that kind of led you that way? Or was it just something that kind of happened naturally?
No, it's a great question, and it's a little bit. There's a couple of answers to that. One, yes, there was a little bit of having run. I ran a magazine before I started Stage32 called Razor, and it was sort of a David and Goliath kind of situation. We were a single title publisher going up against Condé Nast and a bunch of the other gigantic publishers out there, and we knew that we were going to have an uphill climb because these brands were entrenched. And what we did there was we did a lot of crowdsourcing as well. We kind of went to our audience and said, look, this is for this. Our branding was, this is for this type of guy. Like, this is the type of guy that reads this magazine. It's not the type of guy that reads Maxim. In fact, we used to joke. Well, it wasn't even a joke. We actually kind of used this messaging to say, this is a magazine for the guy that's done with his Maxim years and not quite ready for his Esquire years. That pissed a lot of people. Yeah. That pissed a lot of people in the publishing industry off, but it gave us an enormous amount of attention. And then what we did was we started getting incredible numbers on the subscriber side and on the readership side. And at one point we were actually outselling Esquire and GQ, which was amazing for us, but we were able to go to our audience at that point and say, okay, so we went to the people who identified with the brand and, who now were vocal and, or that were loyal supporters of us, I should say, and we asked them to become vocal. And we basically said, look, go out there, share this magazine, share the message. And it was incredible. We got, we did parties around different cities and events around different cities. And we asked people to invite, people that fit the sort of Razor Man style of life and everything like that. And it was all crowdsourcing. And we grew and we grew and we grew. So I took a lot of what we learned from that experience and brought it over to Stage32. But I thought the second reason, I guess I should say, that made me go in that direction as far as the crowdsourcing angle was concerned, is that I knew a lot of the pushback was going to be, and it still is to this day. It's fascinating in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm on so many social media sites. Like, what do I need another one for?
Right.
And I know how to combat that with my messaging. I know what the answer to that is. And really, in a lot of ways, if you have to be asking that question, if you're a creative in this business, then to be honest and to be blunt, and I know this will probably tick some people off too, but I don't think you're serious about what you're doing, because I just think that broad-based social media sites, while there is a place for it with certain things when it comes to branding and it comes to crowdsourcing, it's diluted. It's not a concentrated audience if you're spending your time trying to build relationships and trying to build a network and trying to build a community of like-minded individuals. It's going to be diluted down. So it was important for me to go to people that were doing this in the business and ask them to spread the message, if they saw the worth, to go out and to share that message with everybody else, to explain to everybody why it's worth their time. And that has proven to be extraordinary. Yeah. And, we've seen it just not only I just want to put a button on this because it's just something that just popped into my head, but we've seen this not only online, but we've done events like, let's say, a Cannes, where we have just said, we've gone to some loyal people that we know are going to be at Cannes, some of our most loyal members that are going to be at the festival, and we won't even advertise the fact that we're having an event or a meetup. We'll say, we're leaning on you to invite 10 to 20 people to this event. And, we did that one year, and we had about 150 people, and we did it the following year, and we had over 450 people.
Wow.
And and again, I don't know, we might have sent out invitations on our own, and we might not have gotten that number. It was the fact that everybody said, you need to come see this, and you need to understand what they're doing, and you need to be a part of it. And that's that's the power of the crowd. I mean, the second half, my book is called, Crowdsourcing for Filmmakers. The subtitle is Indie Film and the Power of the Crowd. And the emphasis really is the power of the crowd. And again, there's no more valuable currency than that outside of the actual content today. Not to repeat myself, but to repeat myself.
No, repeat away.
It really shows you that Stage 32 isn't just a social media network. It's really just a community. And the people that are a part of that community, are obviously dedicated, at least a portion of them. I'm sure there's there's people like me who kind of sneak in there and just kind of poking around and kind of feeling it out. And, where there's other people who are probably really involved with the community. Is that something that you see with your users?
It's totally true. Absolutely. And I think that, again, I think people don't understand that you can't hide online. It's the thing that, like I said earlier, I get so many people that hit me up every week. Look at my, help me, do this for me, do that for me. Or you know so much and I can't get any traction and I've been doing this for 5 years, all these things. And then I'll go and I'll look at if they're on Stage 32, first of all. And if they're not on Stage 32, I'll say, okay, so you're writing the CEO of somebody that created a platform that absolutely will help you. And you're asking, well, how do I get help? Or they're on Stage 32 and they haven't logged in a year. Or they're on Stage 32 and, they log in, but they don't participate in any way. And I sit there and I just say, look, man, this is the problem. You get people that, come onto the site and some people that aren't on the site at all. Like people will reach out to me all the time. And as I said earlier, some people will be asking me to look at their material or finance their material or produce their material. But you get other people too that are, looking for, they want you to provide all the answers. And they, I go and I, even the people that ask me to look at their, the material and stuff like that, I'll go and look and, the first thing I look for is, are they a member of the platform? And it's amazing how often they're not. And, when they're not, I sit there and I say to myself, okay, so they're reaching out to me knowing, and they'll even say a lot of times, like, I know you're the CEO of Stage 32. That's an awesome platform you created and everything like that. Then I go and they have no profile. They haven't even created a profile. So I'm like, well, how do you know how awesome it is? But I certainly know is that you're not taking control of your own destiny. And I think that's the thing. Like very often people will write to me and I'll go and I'll look, like I said, to see if they have a profile. More often than not, they don't have one. More often than not, if they do have one, they're not utilizing it at all. They're not in there. They're not networking. They're not contributing. They're not involved in any way. And I kind of equate it to going to a conference. You go to a film conference and you just sit in the corner and you don't talk to anybody, or you stand outside the lecture hall. And then when it's over, you go up to the person who just gave the lecture and say, can you help me? I mean, that's really what you're doing. And there are so many people, but that's what I said earlier too. I said earlier that, when you asked, it's a rough business? And I said, it's really not when you start giving yourself a competitive advantage. And that's one of the ways you get a competitive advantage. If you're signaling to people, you can't hide on the internet. It's very easy for people to go look at your social media and at what you're doing. When you're bitching and moaning about the fact that you don't have time, and then you go and look at somebody's social media and they're making 700 political posts today, or, whatever the hell they're posting about, you sit there and go, well, if you took that time and you actually, put in the time, you maybe you wouldn't be writing me. Maybe you'd be, further along in your career, I guess, and not be looking for these questions and everything like that, or looking for these answers, I should say. So, I mean, yeah, you do get a lot of people. I can tell you that, being in front of this, and I am obviously very active within the community, the common denominator for the people, and I've seen so many people go on to such major successes, whether they're getting representation or whether they found financing or whether producers hooked up with a director or actors have gotten roles or whatever the case may be. There's been, tens of thousands of success stories on the site since we started, on the platform since we started, that we know about, that people have, told us about or written in or we see posted or whatever. And then there's God knows how many more that we don't know about. The common denominator with every single one of them is that they put in the work. They put in the time. They're visible. They're active. And in a lot of ways, and this is key as well, they're very, very selfless. They're being contributors. they're educated on who they're talking to. All these things make a difference. They really, really do. And all these things give you a competitive advantage over the next person.
Yeah. Now with the people that, because we've interviewed different forms of artists before, whether it's, painters or it's something, someone in acting or who knows. Do you think that the reason they're not using the tools that you've so kindly given them is because there's this overwhelming feeling of if you're an artist, you don't also need to be a business person, or do you think I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to me that someone wouldn't use something that's so clearly helpful to bridge the gap. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think the reason is for?
Well, I think there's a few reasons. I think that I just think the overarching reason is laziness. They don't want to put in the time. Some people, I think some of it is ego. I think some people think that their art should speak for themselves. And in this day and age, that certainly does not work. You have to there's so much content being created that you could be brilliant, but you have to be able to stand above the crowd. And the way you stand above the crowd is to have supporters and champions of your work. You can't create art in a vacuum and expect it. I mean, you can create art in a vacuum, but eventually you have to, bring it out to the world. And I think that's a big part of it. And then there's some very legitimate reasons. I think that there are people who are introverted, who this does not come easy for. And, that's something that I speak about in the book. It's something that I get to lecture on quite often, which I enjoy because, especially at writers, for example, writers are very insular and they do have a hard time networking. And a lot of them do feel like, well, if I write something great, it's going to rise to the top. And maybe, 10 years ago, maybe that was the case when you were able to submit, when there wasn't as many people doing it, and there wasn't as many legalities to deal with as there are today. And then I think a lot of people I don't think a lot of people embrace this idea of branding. What's the branding of you? What's the branding of your film? What's the branding of your work, your material? All of these things matter, but you have to be at the forefront of that. It's like I said at the top of this thing, right? If you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur. You really are. You are the entrepreneur of you and your material and your work. Right. So if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be out there letting people know what you do and gaining champions of what you do. And so I think that, some people have a hard time understanding how to do that, but there is a lot of information out there on how to get by that. And there's a ton of articles. I've written a few for Medium that you can find very easily. But I think a lot of the other reasons, to be blunt, I think, boil down to hubris, ego, and laziness.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. Yeah. No, that's
so. I do, like I said earlier. I do music. I'm a music producer, and I see a lot of that same thing in the music industry, where it's a lot of ego, and a lot of people, they think that they have like the best songs or the best whatever, and they'll spend all day telling you how good they are, but when it comes to actually putting the music out there or whatever, and there's always that underlying excuse, whether it's like you said, they're lazy, or they just, the ego is kind of getting in their way. Has there ever been a situation where and I'm sure there has on your platform, like where you've seen that, happening to a person and you've kind of helped them overcome or kind of steer them? Because I'm sure, people, that listen to this podcast are, they're dealing with those struggles as well. So what are kind of like, without giving too much away, some tangible examples of like how you helped someone overcome that?
Well, it's not even, I don't think it's a matter of giving anything away. The environment on Stage 32 is overwhelmingly positive and inviting. We don't allow trolling. We make you stand in front of your own name so that, you're responsible for what you write, and responsible for the material you put out there.
That's great.
So, by virtue of that, we have very little abuse. The community polices itself. We've had to kick off, I think, in 6-7 years, only probably 6-7 people. And those people were warned repeatedly, to rein it in. So I think that by creating, a nurturing and inviting environment, I think we've had more successes than failures as far as people who may have come in from a place of being timid or a place of, I may not be good enough for this platform. I may, there's too many professionals here. I'm not a professional. What can I offer people? We constantly explain, how to use social media to your benefit. And I always tell people the great neutralizers on being online and being, on social media is, to ask first of all, is to be informed. You need to be informed on who, you're dealing with, who you're speaking with, and know a little bit about them. So educating yourself is amazingly important. But then after that, really, it comes down to just being human. Everybody wants a human connection. It doesn't matter how successful the person you're speaking with or trying to connect with is. The commonality is that you're both human beings. So if you come in from a place of asking questions, giving compliments for good material that's being shared, sharing content on your own, all of those things are great neutralizers and great entry points for anybody on social media, and anybody can do that. And it becomes less intimidating, of course, when you're doing that from behind the screen. But it'll, when you start doing that and you start getting a response to it, and you will, you could ask questions on social media for people, and you might not get a response every time, but you'll get a response quite often, if you handle yourself the right way. When you share content, you'll get a response to that. When you compliment people on the content that they're sharing and thank them for sharing it, you'll get a response to that. And all of a sudden, what ends up happening is you start getting people interested in you and what you're doing. And that's a very rewarding experience for somebody who, maybe, again, intimidated by this idea of being in a community where either they feel they don't have a lot to offer, or whether they're new to a certain profession or craft, or, and they're trying to learn, whatever the case may be. I think sometimes people forget that every single person that they're trying to talk to is just a human being, just like them, and is trying to achieve the same goals that they are. So I think that's part of it. Coming from the other end of it, when you said, the people that feel like they're too good, and too good for it, and I can't help those people. Those people need to help themselves. Yeah. I mean, the reality is, if you're not getting the results you're looking for, if you think your genius is so great, but nobody else seems to be connecting with it, then you have a problem. And that's something that you have to figure out for yourself. Because I'll tell you what, I have met a ton of great filmmakers, a ton of amazing writers. I mean, they've written some incredible scripts who their material falls into the void because they do not get themselves out there. They do not handle themselves the right way. People don't want to work with you if you're all ego, if you're all, they want to, and by the way, I talked earlier about how you can't hide on social media. I have been in rooms, man. I've seen it on the acting side. I've seen it on the writing side. I've seen it on the filmmaking side, where the people in the room are discussing talent they want to hire, and they'll look at the way they handle themselves on social media. And if it's all, combative and nasty and whatever, they'll go, nope, next. And guess what? There is a next. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Good. There is a next. There's another. There's a next great script. There's a next great filmmaker, and there's a person that has that kind of talent that actually also is a great collaborator. And there's a feeling in this business right now that life's too short to deal with people that don't want to collaborate, or people that want to put their own interests and their own ego ahead of the team. And that's really what, this is all about. It's really, we do a lot of stuff in isolation. Like I said earlier, actors rehearse their lines in isolation or learn their lines in isolation. Writers write in isolation, do a lot of things in isolation. But when you come out of that room and you step out into the sunlight, you're going to be working with a crew and a team and a bunch of people, and you're going to get notes and you're going to get feedback. And you're going to have to learn, and you have to learn how to deal with that. And if people see that you can't deal with that, or you're unwilling to deal with that, or your ego is above all of it, guess what? You're gone, man. You're on to the next. On to the next.
Yeah,
part of the craft.
Now, you've obviously created, like I said, this awesome community. And I see. And by the way, don't judge my profile yet, because it is not complete.
Yeah, but, that's why I almost didn't come on this freaking podcast.
Give me a second. I just found out about this thing. But anyways, I do see you interacting a lot on the platform just by looking, a little bit. And and I see you on there, and which is really cool because at such a high level, like to be engaging with the average user is a really neat thing that you do. But also tells me that like you're doing a lot of things over there. You're running this company. You're also producing films and writing books. Like, I just want to kind of switch gears here a little bit. And what's a day like for you? Because productivity is like a really big thing for especially for the 5 o'clock hustler, the person who's going and they're working 9 to 5s and they're coming trying to make basically another lives for themselves after they get off of work. So what is it like for you?
Yeah, geez, it's control chaos, I guess, is the
that term.
I can't say that any 2 days are alike. I mean, I try to start the day kind of the same way. I read the trades in the morning and try to get on top of what's going on in the business. That's been a habit of mine for a while. I usually do my workouts and exercising in the morning to get it out of the way and to kind of get my head straight.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, it really is a lot of control chaos because, it's a lot of meetings. It's, I'm trying to, I hate the word balance. I really do,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to say juggle. I'm trying to juggle, my Stage 32 responsibilities and the business of Stage 32, which I think a lot of people that are on the platform, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but there are quite a few people that I don't think understand just how much it goes into running a platform of this size, and we're a very small team. So there are a lot of responsibilities there, not only in making sure the community is okay, but building the actual business and taking meetings on the business. And then, on top of that, there's my personal projects, obviously the writing, the producing, the acting and all that. So, I mean, perfect example is today there, were 4 different meetings today that I was running around LA on, and 2 of them had to do with writing, producing and film business, film industry kind of business.
Sure.
And then the other 2 had to do with initiatives and partnerships for Stage 32. So it's always control chaos. And, I'm constantly on the move, constantly on the grind, constantly on the hustle. And it's, if I find 5 minutes here, if I'm at Starbucks and I'm picking up a coffee, I hop on the app and I'll respond to some people on the site. One of my tech guys told me, my lead developer the other day told me that I've made something like 320,000 posts on this site since we started. And a lot of those are just replies to people and everything like that. But it's an enormous amount. I mean, but it's something that I feel like it's a practice what you preach kind of thing. Like, I said earlier that people are lazy and people don't want to put in the time. Well, I want the people who are putting in the time to know that or to see that it's worthwhile. I'm very obviously active on Twitter and Instagram as well to show people
example,
where, it's leading by example. It's not an ego thing. It's more of like, here's what I'm doing. I want people to understand that 6-7 years ago, I had barely any contacts in this business. I had barely any relationships in this business.
Wow.
And a lot of people think that, some of the good stuff that's happened to me is because I'm the CEO of Stage 32. And I got to tell you, if I could curse on this show, it's bullshit. And it really is. It's because nobody is going to, nobody, you could bleep me out. Nobody is going to take the time to, people aren't meeting me because I'm running this platform. People are meeting me for film business and for producing opportunities, or because they want to read my screenplays and stuff like that. They're not going to waste their time because I'm the freaking CEO of Stage 32. They're taking the time because the content has spoke to them or the project speaks to them, and because, quite bluntly, I built those relationships and I work those relationships every day. And you're part of, like you said, what's a day in the life like? Certainly almost every single day of my life, without question, there's at least an hour dedicated to building relationships and networking. And I treat it like a job, just like I treat everything else like a job. And that keeps me committed to it. And that has paid enormous dividends for me. It's how everything has happened for me. And I got to tell you, 98 to 99% of those relationships started on Stage 32. I work the site just like everybody else should. But I worked the site as it was intended to be worked.
Wow. Well, that initial 100 industry friends that you were referring to must have been a good 100.
Yes. Oh,
You know, it's funny because they came from all walks of life. They were people that I worked with on, people I even volunteered on projects for, people that, you know, some of them were pretty well accomplished and some of them were, you know, kind of on that early grind like I was. And, but you know, it's just, you never know. It's really the reality of this business. You never know who, you know, the PA on your film today or that you meet on a film today could be, you know, the lead producer on a, you know, a $20 million movie tomorrow. It's just the nature of this business. And that's why no connection is a bad connection. That's why, you know, you do work your relationships. That's why you treat it like a job. You really, really do. You know, it just can't be overstated. It's everything comes down to, everybody wants to like each other in this business. The people in this business get a bad rap, and certainly there are some people that are, you know, as we're finding out, some nefarious people and some people that are just, you know, all about themselves and you know, egotistical. But I'll tell you, a lot of those people fall through the void. You see it. It happens more and more. And it really is the people that kind of create this sort of grassroots group when they're starting out together and stay in touch with one another and everything like that, that a few years later are making incredible art and doing it together. And because the other reality in this business is that people want to work with people that they know, and they want to continue to work with people they know because it is a hard enough business. And when you're able to go from one project to the other without much of a change in the casting, well, in the crew, let's say, and in the people you're producing with and the people you're working with, it makes it infinitely easier because everybody is on the same page and you don't have to go through that, you know, that feeling out process anymore. So that's why it's so important to have these relationships, to build a team and to, you know, form writing groups and form mastermind groups. And these are all things you can do online these days. You don't have to be in LA and you don't have to be in the middle of everything to do it. I mean, I know so many people that have created virtual mastermind groups that just, you know, they meet once a month together over, you know, sort of conferencing software, and then they break out and they meet once a month, you know, individually on like Skype. And that's incredible. You could do that with anybody around the world. And, but people, you know, like I said, some people take advantage of it and some people don't. You know, I'll tell what I think is a very inspiring story. I got involved, you know, people like, oh my God, I got, you know, I got a network request from a guy in India. And why the hell do I want to connect with a filmmaker in India? And well, you know, I built relationships with a bunch of people who lived around the States. And one of them introduced me to a filmmaker in India. And we got to talking. We just, you know, nothing was coming up. We were just kind of staying friends. I introduced him to a few people that I thought could help him with a project. And, you know, things kept going on and on. And, you know, one day he brought this short to me and said, you know, it's really important, you know, important messaging. And I really think it's going to be a great, and, you know, I helped him produce the short and bring some of these Stage 32 members that I thought could help him with post-production, with composing, with all this together. And they made the film in India, and now it's playing. It just started getting out to film festivals, and it's played in film festivals. And this is the early stages across like 17 countries already. Oh, that's amazing. You know, that's all just by building relationships through an online platform. You know what I mean? And if that doesn't inspire you to take control of your own destiny, if that doesn't inspire you to understand that the world is so wide open, and you know, to be active or to be inactive is a choice. Yeah. And you know, my choice is to always be active.
There's so many tools now, and it's kind of one of the reasons why why I did my little project. Like I said, it's still in the editing bay right now. I don't know what's happening, but
get your ass on there, finish it up.
The director's the editor, and he also has a 9 to 5 or so. But just the fact that when things like, you know, like the crowdfunding thing came out, maybe we didn't you know, do the whole crowdsourcing part right? But just the tools to be able to actually go out and make those connections and actually be able to make your thing like that and actually get people to give you money. There's so many different ways to do it now. And including with your platform, making those connections there's just so many tools.
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse.
I was going to say, one of my very good friends is the head of film at Indiegogo. And so he gets, a lot of the projects come right through him. And him and I were just talking the other day, and he said it's the same, he deals with the same thing over and over again. He said, but it's even more difficult now, he said, because when he started, there were people that were kind of afraid of crowdfunding. So they were, the questions were legit. The questions were like, well, why our project, and what do we need to do to attract people to our project? And of course, he would talk about the idea of crowdsourcing and building that cachet and that cadre and that army of people before you ever launch. He said the problem today is that people have gone from being afraid to do it to now everybody thinks they could do it. And he said, there's only so big
for
of a
better or
pot
worse.
of money out there. Yeah, for better or for worse, right? And he said, there's a pot of money out there, he said, right? If you think about that, he goes, and that gets dispersed in a certain way. He goes, well, of course, the bulk of it is going to go to the people who are putting in the time and who are understanding that raising financing through crowdfunding is really no different than doing it through traditional means, or the old style means of going and trying to find financiers. It's just that you're doing it on a mass level, and these people have more projects to choose from than ever before. So how do you rise above that? How do you create a name for yourself? How do you create a brand for you and your film that people care about? And who are you approaching? And what people, what groups, what individuals are going to care about that messaging, and are you targeting in the right way? He goes, to try to make people understand that these days, he goes, it's just, everybody just wants to just put it up. He said, everybody just thinks, and then they come to him and they go, well, why is it failing? Indiegogo, the platform is terrible. Everything sucks. And he's like, nope. You didn't listen. You didn't put in the time. You're not putting in the work. You have this, if you build it, they will come mentality. And that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And, that's why I was saying earlier.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come, but you also need like a deadly natural event to push them all to the boat. But you gotta, in this case, it's like you gotta put yourself out there and put the work in, and you gotta build it and you gotta make them come.
Yep, no doubt about it.
We're getting pretty close to an hour here, and you've been so generous with your time, even though we've had a lot of interruptions. But I'm not sure how you're on time, but I don't want to keep you too much longer. I do want to. Let's go. I just want to kind of dive into. We talked about a lot about the business portion and a lot about the crowdsourcing. But when it comes to that, the actual filmmaking process, what has been your experience with just I guess the production aspect? Because I just keep thinking about my own experience. And I said, I wish, I had a platform like yours so I could reach out to so many people to help me out. If you were, someone who's, relatively new to, let's say filmmaking, because there's a lot of people who are like, I wish I could make a film. It's just, it's just getting the guts to do it really. What would be some suggestions that you could give to some of those people? And that's a pretty broad
I think
question.
It depends on,
I know.
Yeah, no, it is, and especially even more so now because again, there's so many different types of content being created. Short form content, proof of concept content has become bigger than ever before. Obviously, we're living in sort of a renaissance and really a gold rush of television content being created, produced, and being purchased. I mean, there's so many scripts that are getting purchased that aren't even making it to TV. So it just depends on, or making it to air, I should say. But it really starts with finding great material and material you're passionate about. I mean, I really think that's it. Me as a producer, it really, really has to speak to me in some sort of way. Or if it's not something I'm completely passionate about, then I have to kind of look at it from the business end and say, if it's something I like or it's people I want to work with, and I do like the material, how can we, does it have other assets attached to it? And that could be obviously financing. It could be talent. It could be it could be a crowd. I mean, it really can. If this is something that's being produced, I mean, something that's being created, and maybe there's some talent attached that has a built-in audience, for it. That's something that's very appealing, and it's becoming more appealing for producers everywhere, and even for production companies and studios everywhere. That's something that they're looking at these days. So those are some of the things that, I would look for. I think if somebody is looking to control their own material, I think, again, what's the end game? If somebody is looking, if you're just starting out and you're looking to produce a feature film, my suggestion might be to, if you haven't raised the money for that, or if you need a certain amount of money for that, that seems excessive at this point in the game for you, then I would say, why not do it as a short first, as proof of concept, sort of take that route that, Damien Chazelle took with Whiplash. He made it as a short, raised the money as a short, got it into Sundance, they basically came, Bold Films came to him and said, what do you want to do next? And he said, I want to do the full length version of this. And they said, okay. And he's not the only one, obviously. There's been a ton of people out there that have done shorts, either as proof of concept for a longer form version of that material, or proof of concept for their talents. And so I would say, if you're a filmmaker starting out, you may want to think about that, doing something a little short form, something that's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, something that...
Sure, concentrating your resources.
Yeah, and also figuring out where you can get those resources from. I mean, again, not to dive back into crowdsourcing again, but I mean, a lot of people I know that create short films that, let's say it's a $15,000 budget. I've met so many people, especially since I wrote the book, who love to tell me their stories, and I love hearing them about how they took like a $15,000 budget and turned it into like 5,000 because they were able to crowdsource the equipment and crowdsource the locations and crowdsource some of the crew, and so it's being resourceful as well. It's trying to make the film look like $1 million, but make it for 5,000. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think that's that's the way. But I think that's the way to start out. It's a great question too, because I just had the opportunity last night to watch some of the. We do a short film contest every year on Stage 32, and we screen the program at festivals around the world, which is great. So we this year we're showing it at Rain Dance and at Holly Shorts in Hollywood, which is one of the only Oscar qualifying short film festivals in the States. And so we're really, really proud of it. And every year, the 2 years we've done it, the program has been incredible. Last night I watched a couple of films that, I have to tell you, I was floored by. And I went to one of the filmmakers and I said, or one of the producers actually, and I said, what did you make this for? Because it looked like, this thing looked like, like a $50,000 short. Easy. And they made it for under 10. And I said, how the hell did you make it for under 10? And he said, everybody sacrificed, begged, borrowed, and stole everywhere we could. We did everything that we needed to do to keep it under, and we put the money where it mattered, which was in certain equipment, in our sound, and in our post. And I was like, man, if that isn't the most textbook perfect response, I don't know what is. But that's why it's so incredible. They really did it. They got the right people, they got the right actors, they got everybody to sacrifice and everybody to donate their time and buy in on the project and everything like that. But again, it's funny because it's like every one of these answers is sort of cross-pollinating with everything that we said before. I said, how'd you get all these people to do it? And he said, relationships. We all have relationships, and everybody bought in. Yeah. And that's really where it comes from. Again, it comes back to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like the true definition of community, and that's something that, Stage 32 makes available to everyone. It's really neat, and it's great to know that there's so many parallels between different worlds of business. Everything you're saying applies to every industry. How do you be successful when you're just starting at something? Create proof of concept, 100%. Create some success, and be realistic in how you can create that success, and then show it to everyone that you possibly can. Have them buy into it, engage with them, and then broaden your scope. And then really that's the key to success generally. And it sounds like you have a really strong handle on that. That's really cool to hear.
Well, and you just defined everything that, it's a perfect kind of full circle thing, because you just defined what an entrepreneur does, right? Mm-hmm. And again, if you're a producer, if you're a writer, if like I said, you are an entrepreneur. And all of those things that you just said, I mean, all those things you just laid out and that strategy that you just laid out is exactly right. And, the people that succeed get that and embrace it. Some people, it takes a little bit longer than others, but most of the people that, you see kind of bow out because they either don't want to accept that or they just don't want to put in the time, because it does take a lot of time and effort. It's work. A friend of mine who's a very successful producer was speaking on a panel with me at a film festival, and somebody asked them, she said, so she goes, what's the difference between a success, what would you say is the one aspect that makes a successful producer as opposed to somebody that just can't get it done? And he said, frankly, he goes, everything in this business, he goes, it's work. He goes, some people want to put it in and some people don't want to put it in. He goes, and he goes, the quicker you learn that, he goes, the more successful you're going to be, or the shorter the path you can have to success. And it's true. Well, and it's true. I mean, a lot of people say film business, nothing but fun. If you get that, the second word is business.
Yeah.
And it is.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
Well, RB, you've inspired me. I'm gonna crank up my profile. I'm gonna make some connections, and I hope everybody listening to this does the same thing and signs up for an account, especially if they're interested. Well, mostly if they're interested in the film industry, but be like me too and try to find those parallels for whatever venture that you're doing. Is there anything else that you'd like to throw out there before we wrap this thing up?
No, I mean, just take action. Every day take action. Every day is, if you start doing things and if you start creating habits for yourself to go out and do it and to be repetitive in the strategies that you put in place that are going to, that you feel are going to bear results, and adjust accordingly, you are going to make progress. You're going to see the results that you want. So, just get out there and do it every day. And, results take time, results do take time, but as long as you're putting in the effort every day, you will see those results. I guarantee that. And then, as far as, just I invite everybody to stay in touch with me. Obviously, if you sign up for Stage 32, you'll get me on your wall immediately, and I respond to everything. So if you want to drop me a note, you can. If you want to connect with me on any other social media, I'm on Twitter and on no, not on Facebook. No. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at RB Walks Into a Bar. That's exactly how it sounds. My initials, RB Walks Into a Bar.
That's incredible.
Twitter and Instagram. It's also Medium. If you want to read my articles on Medium.
I love that name.
RB Walks Into a Bar. Yeah, I gotta get credit. That was a little contest kind of thing that somebody did. In fact, they did a contest. They did a little thing on Twitter where they unbeknownst to me, I found out I was actually out at a bar, and somebody said to me, "You should go check your Twitter. It's pretty funny right now." And I checked it, and it was a whole bunch of my friends and people from Stage 32, and they were doing RB Walks Into a Bar, and they were going to pick a winner, and one of my friends came up with RB Walks Into a Bar and No One Walks Out.
That's amazing.
Which I thought was pretty funny. So I thought that was pretty funny. But so you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Medium, RB Walks Into a Bar, and obviously on Stage 32. And finally, I'll just throw out shameless plug. Crowdsourcing for filmmakers. I fought with my publisher on the title of this book because it's crowdsourcing for filmmakers, but it really truly is crowdsourcing for film creatives, and it really truly is crowdsourcing for any entrepreneur, any business person. It's all about how you identify, engage, and move an audience for the brand of you, the brand of your projects, the brand of your company, all of it, and it's available on Amazon. Crowdsourcing for filmmakers, indie film, and the power.
Awesome. We really appreciate that.
And everyone, you can find all those links that RB mentioned on the episode page at 5o'clockHustle.com/stage32. Thank you everybody for listening. RB, thank you so much for coming on. You've been awesome. You gave us so much value here and so much information that we're going to be able to use. I'm going to listen to this thing back again, and I might have to take some more notes. But thank you again so much for coming on and giving us your time. It was really awesome. Thank you.
Very cool. Too cool, guys.
Amazing.
Great episode.
Well, you guys have been great, man. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Take care.